A few weeks ago, I sat with our practitioners on a Zoom call, and I asked them each to bring forth a question to ask me. And this week, the first two questions are from Janet McGinty.
How did this pandemic all come about in God's plan? Was this kind of come out of race consciousness, free will, or was this just kind of a gentle nudge into living differently and living, caring about each other, and just kind of rewinding ourselves and taking another look around?
My first answer to that question is all of the above. I don't ever believe that it's just one thing that comes forth in universal wisdom. So when we talk about race consciousness and we talk about needing a gentle nudge, all of these were components. And as we look to nature, we know that when something needs to come forth, when something needs to be purged or cleansed, nature has a way of doing that. And whatever contributes to that is just the part of the process. So I absolutely believe that all of these things that you mentioned are a part of what has taken place. And I don't believe that we got a gentle nudge this year. I think we got a really tough, swift kick. We got one of those wake-up calls that said, it's time to change. It's time to make some differences. And so in answering this question, I absolutely believe that all of these things came together, almost, you hear that term, the perfect storm, came together at the right time, at the right place, and this is what came forth from it.
My second question is, with all this going around us, the pandemic, the effects, how people are losing their jobs and racial inequality and people losing loved ones, where do you start to pray?
So what I hear you asking about is those tender moments, those times and events that happen that just tear at our hearts and pull our attention. And it's often tough to get into that place of being grounded and being in that place of prayer. So the first thing I always do is I plant my feet firmly on the ground and I look at them. And I breathe into that space of knowing that I'm grounded, that I am solid on planet Earth. And then we have this wonderful process in our philosophy that as we move into prayer, the first two steps of prayer actually ground us. So I usually begin speaking, and that idea and that sense of what is God and how is Spirit showing up in my life right here, right now. And I may be looking around me, I may have my eyes closed, but just acknowledging, just knowing what Spirit is, and then moving into that next step of prayer where we talk about connection and that we are united and we are unified. We are unified with Spirit. That is the next piece, because then I know that God is and I am. And those are the pieces that help me to be grounded and to go into that place solidly into prayer. Thanks for those questions, Janet. We'll be listening to questions over the remainder of the month of January, and next week we will have a question from our very own staff minister, Reverend Stephanie. Please pray with me. As we just breathe into this moment, to this time, to this space, to this new year, let us know and acknowledge the fact that we are always accompanied and always connected to God, in God, with God, as God. There is a power, there is a presence that has moved from last year to this year with us, supporting us, guiding us, holding us in that beautiful space of life and light. And so as we just think about this, as we just consider this, we know that we are guided, we are directed, we are protected at all times. And so knowing this, we move forward into this new year, knowing that we are connected one to another, we are united, we are unified. We are part of the greater human race. And it's beautiful because we know that the divine lives within each and every one of us, not just some of us, all of us. So we just call this good. We call it perfect. We know it is blessed. And we know it is exactly where we need to be and where we choose to be and how we choose to be. I know and affirm right here and right now that all people are blessed everywhere. And I know that this time together is perfect. And so I just let this go and let it be. And so it is. It's a brand new year. I think some of us didn't think we'd get here. Some of us didn't think that 2020 would ever end. But it did. It came to a close. And now we have a brand new year ahead of us. And I'm so excited to be able to be with you on this journey. Even though you're not in this room with me exactly, we are still connected and we are still moving forward together. As we look at the theme for this year and the theme for this month, we have an idea that we want to bring forth. We're looking at wisdom this month. We are looking at vision this month. And so today's talk title and the theme for this month are the same: timeless wisdom, evolutionary vision. Kind of feels like a mouthful, but what powerful words they are. Timeless wisdom, evolutionary vision. We are going to talk about the basics of the science of mind, of the teachings, the fundamentals, the foundations of what we teach this entire month, just to help us get regrounded, because what a perfect time it is to kind of start fresh, start anew, and remember our philosophy and remember our teachings. Henry David Thoreau said this: "It is characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things." I thought that was a very beautiful quote. Not to do desperate things. That means that when I was talking last month about preparing for the new year and preparing to let go of 2020, that we are living in a space of consciousness. We are living in a time of awareness. We kind of know what's going on around us and we're paying attention and we are prepared. Because when we're not prepared, life can throw us off kilter and we can go into panic and we can go into reaction and we become desperate. So I was reminded of a time when I jumped out of an airplane, and I thought it was a great thing to do, and I remember my mother was really excited and very upset because she thought it was one of the most foolish things I'd ever done. It wasn't necessarily wise because it was a huge risk. It was a lot of fun, taught me a lot of things. But when you look at it in the context of wisdom, we sometimes need to reel in some of those behaviors. We need to sometimes look at those outrageous things that we want to do and look at what is the wise choice. What is the wise choice for us? This past year was a time of contemplation, if you took advantage of it. It was a time to prepare and to relax and to rest. For many of us, it was a time to meditate, contemplate, journal. For many of us, we had space of time. We had ability to really look at our lives and reflect on who we are, and where we want to go. And so as we reflect on this and our basic teachings, I want to talk about where we come from with this idea of timeless wisdom and evolutionary vision. Timeless wisdom has to do with the basics of our belief system. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one, indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but it is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. We also believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in everyone, and that all people are incarnations of the one Spirit. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding. Might have to play that back a couple times to get that, but I'm going to explain it to you in just pretty easy words, because the words I just spoke are those of Ernest Holmes. What we're saying is, very simply, we believe in one God, one power, one energy, one universal wisdom. You can call it this name or this name or this name. You can worship it or connect with it or do whatever you choose in whatever way you want, but we believe there's only one. There's only one. We also believe that it lives within each and every being, within each one of us. And we believe that we have access to it on our own, which means that I don't have to go to someone to connect with my God. I can do that right here. I can do that on my own. We believe that the form, all of the things that happen around us, all of the physical things that we see and observe, this is the manifest body of God. When we pray and ask for something, it shows up in form for us. We have evidence of that. And we believe that the soul, the human spirit, is eternal. So when we look at the concept of evolutionary vision, we look at the global vision that we have through Centers for Spiritual Living. And what we have in this vision is we see a world in which every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. That's beautiful. We envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where the kinship with all life prospers and connects through guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to further emerge global consciousness. A world that works for everyone, not just some people, not just a few people, all people. Ernest Holmes says this: "Find me one person who can get his own littleness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which I live." He's talking about that idea that some of us have a sense that some of us are better than others, some of us are smarter than others, some of us know more than others. And what he is saying is, show me the man or woman who doesn't have to do that, who moves away from the littleness of who they are, of trying to expand on who they are. And that's where I can see the immeasurable magnitude of the universe I live in. Our teaching is timeless. And that's the context of where we are right now, is to look at the timelessness of these teachings, of this philosophy. If you pick up the Science of Mind textbook and you open it randomly and you read a paragraph, you will find that there is a message and a meaning for you today. In the same respect, think about any of the classes, those of you who have taken any of our classes. You can take one of our classes and years later take that same class and get a totally different meaning from it. And it's not because the class has changed, it's because you have changed. You have evolved. Every time we turn to some type of truth or guidance for ourselves, we are coming from a new space, a new place, and that's what makes it timeless. Because it touches us and it moves us forward every single time we connect with it. This year we are going to be offering classes every single month. And this month we have a class that we have made, that we have created, that is a 3-week class. And the reason why we're moving a lot of our materials to 3-week classes is because what we are discovering with all of the things that are going on around us is we can usually commit to 3 weeks. And we can also adjust the investment for these classes, so it's easier to afford them and to partake of these classes. And we have practitioners who will be facilitating classes. I will be facilitating them. But what I want you to know is, even if you took the basics, one of the first classes we ever offer has been Foundations, and then that became Beyond Limits. And if you've taken either one of those classes, I invite you to try this new class this month, The Gifts of Science of Mind. Because even though you will learn some of the same tools and techniques, it will be new to you. It will be new to you because you are showing up with a new mindset and a new attitude. And what we incorporate in this are the wonderful practices that we have. And so what I know is that back in the day when I was first taking classes, and I would take a class and we were asked to journal every day and we were asked to meditate every day, man, I was going to do all those things exactly as I needed to get as much as I could out of the class. And then a few months later, maybe I didn't quite journal as much as I had been, and maybe I wasn't meditating quite the same way. And what happens is we start to revert away from the new skills and things that actually feed our spirit. And so taking a class always helps us re-engage and reincorporate those. So I want you to take time this week. We're at the very beginning of a brand new year. And consider what a world that works for everyone would feel like. What would it look like? How would we all operate? We can bring forth peace, love, harmony, balance, compassion, oneness, inclusion. I like the terminology we have over here in the Global Vision where it talks about kinship. Kinship is not a word that I think I've ever used in my life. But if I use the word kinship when I'm talking about the people I come in contact with, there's a totally different meaning for me. And it takes me into that place of one global family, kinship. I invite you to take some time and just think about that, contemplate that, consider it, and see what that means to you and how that supports you and what you wish to take forth. I also go back to the quote from Ernest Holmes when he's talking about littleness. And he also had a quote that I was reviewing that was talking about we don't want to show up in our arrogance. We don't need to overpower someone else with our knowledge. But yet, we want to remember that there are people on this planet who know things we don't know, who have a different insight or perspective on certain things that we don't have. And he encourages us to be open to that, instead of discounting them. So thinking about a time when I wanted to learn something I did not know before. I had I had been involved in a very fundamentalist teaching growing up. And now I was an adult and I had 2 children and I was single and something just wasn't fitting for me. And so I started going into prayer and asking for a teacher to come into my life, someone that could teach me something I'd never heard of before. And I spent some time with this whole idea because I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew that there had to be something out there that would feed my spirit at that moment in my life. And it was amazing because one day I was walking into my apartment into this door, and the gentleman that lived across the hall was walking into his apartment through this door. And we later became friends, and I found out that he was a person who called himself a metaphysician. And he opened up a world to me of limitless possibility that I had no idea of before. And it was beautiful, and it was amazing. So consider the fact that even though someone comes into your space or your world and has some ideas that you've never heard of, just step back and pause. Allow yourself to consider. We always talk about, in this philosophy, we encourage you to be open at the top, and I always encourage you to take what works for you, not what works for me, and make what works for you part of your life. We're at choice. We're at that beautiful, beautiful choice. This past month, in December, in the Science of Mind magazine, our editor, Holly Sharp, wrote a little article. I think it's called The Note from the Editor. And I found this statement that she made. I want to share this quote with you. Here's what she says. When we cut through fear, chatter, politics, and division, our souls know. We are silently beckoned home to that all-loving presence conducting this universal symphony. Symphony. That takes me back to that idea I was talking about of a balance, harmony. How does a symphony perform? What if the entire planet performed as a symphony? I believe that nature already does that. How beautiful that could be for us. And what she goes on to say, and I really appreciate this comment because I agree with her. This place of this universal symphony, of knowing what we know beyond all of the other facets, all of the other factors out there, this is where I want to dwell. And I see you beside me. That's the world we want to live in. That's the world we are creating. Let's bring forth our wisdom. Let's remember that it's timeless. Let's look to the future with that evolutionary vision that we can expand beyond any type of limitation. Any limiting thought we had before, we can let that go and move past that and create the new year for each and every one of us. Please pray with me. In this moment right here and right now, we just know. We know that we have so much to be thankful for, and we know that God is in this space, and we are grateful for God in all things. Grateful for God in our lives. Grateful for the beautiful world that has been created for us, that we can be a part of, that we can contribute to. And may we know right here and right now that each and every one of us is a divine being. Each and every one of us is a creation of spirit, of that universal divine mind. We were all put here at this moment in time on purpose. Let us own that idea. Let us cherish that idea, and let us move forward as one global family in kinship. And I know for each and every one of us that we have within us that wisdom, that beautiful spark that helps us make the right decisions for each and every one of us. And I know this is good, and I know it's perfect. And so I just call this time blessed and perfect. I call this new year blessed, beautiful, abundant, rich, full. And so I simply let this go. I turn this over to the mind of God, knowing that all is well, all is perfect, and all is divine. I let it go, I let it be, and so it is.